The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into The Sports Source, presented by Renewal by Andersen. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, today was going to be our most important show. Well, it's a preview of the fall season, and we're going to talk about the most important games, the most important positions, the most important newcomers, thus, most important show. That was the gag. We have a lot of information for you today, tons of stats, tons of numbers, interesting stuff you might not have seen anywhere else, some stuff you've probably seen elsewhere, but we'll talk about it in a cool way that'll make it all new. Let's jump right in. First segment of the show brought to you by Renewal by Andersen. Summer is winding down, which means we're out on the verge of those cooler 80-degree fall nights here in Knoxville and East Tennessee. Winter right around the corner. Save money on your utility bills by installing energy-efficient windows from Renewal by Andersen. They are known as the best windows on the market. They look great. They are great. They're an investment in your house. Check out their showroom. You can see their website right there, renewalbyandersen.com. There's also a Knoxville version of that. If you Google Renewal by Andersen Knoxville, you go straight to the Knoxville site. But when you look at that, you can also check out their showroom, which is down in Bearden. So Renewal by Andersen. Check them out this week. They can really help you save some money on your house. Okay, I want to welcome in today's panel. We have Bob Hodge, Jimmy Himes, new member of the family, Ryan Callahan from GoVols247.com. That's the shortest way to get to your website, is it not?
Correct.
All right, Ryan Callahan. And right down there, Chuck Cavaleris. Guys, thanks for being here. Ryan, welcome to the team. I'm glad to see you survived the hazing. All right. We talked about the most important show. I'll get into the data and we'll talk about most important this and that a little later. I want to start, though, with practice and scrimmage notes. All right, the one thing everyone asks about is the quarterback race, and doesn't sound like either one of these guys is really grabbing the job and running away with it and burying it in the backyard and saying it's mine. Still looks like Dormady's the most consistent, but consistency seems to be the thing they're looking for the most in terms of he needs to be more consistent. Your thoughts, guys, on the quarterback race as it stands right now?
At this point, I'd be surprised if Dormady doesn't start. I think he set a pretty solid camp. You talked about the consistency they're looking for. Reportedly, Garantano has made a few more mistakes than Dormady, and that happened in the spring as well. But I just think the fact that Dormady's been in the system, well, I say the system, Larry Scott's the new offensive coordinator, but it's still basically the same system. I think him being in the third year of it gives him an advantage over Garantano.
But I guess what I'm getting is, has anything changed from that?
It
doesn't. I still expect Garantano to play against Georgia Tech.
I do too. And I think the big story here is Butch Jones has done a great job of kind of diffusing the talk of the quarterback battle. At every question he's been asked, hasn't said much about it, has kind of spoken only in general terms about the whole situation. I think not much has changed since the start of camp, and they've kind of known for a while what they wanted to do, unless somebody kind of, like you said, caught their attention. I don't think that's happened yet. I think they plan to start Dormady in the opener, and like you said, I think Garantano will play.
They also said, I think we picked up a little bit that they want Dormady to be more vocal. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when you start getting into the leadership aspects, I think that's a pretty good indication of who you're looking to be able to start that first game.
Bob, is it a good sign or a bad sign that things are still here? Would you have preferred to hear that Dormady is leading? All right, he's been there 3 years, as Jimmy said, and he's really slammed the door on this thing. Or do you like having two guys and they're still keeping this thing going?
No, I don't like having two guys that are keeping it going. I think everybody else may disagree, but I'm a firm believer in the old, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one argument. And if Dormady hadn't been able to separate himself or Garantano hadn't been able to separate himself, and you're going into this thing with them dead even, okay, maybe both of them are Peyton Manning. Or maybe neither one of them are good enough to grab the job and run with it. I think it is a bad sign at this point that somebody hadn't separated themselves.
I was going to say, I think the variable in this is the modern era of college quarterbacks transferring, and you have to worry about keeping both those guys around. If one of them loses the job and leaves, you're left with Will McBride, a true freshman, as a guy who's probably not ready to play in a game as your only guy.
Another reason I think even if Dormady is your guy, and I think he is, I think you're still going to find a way to use Garantano. The trick is the lone exception to the two quarterback thing would be, in my view, if you have two quarterbacks that are different enough in style.
Exactly.
That if you bring one of them in, it can be a change of pace stylistically for the other defense.
Kind of like Chris Leak and Tim Tebow in
Exactly.
Florida.
Yes.
The other thing about the two quarterbacks playing, look, I do think Guarantano likely will play, but I'll say this. If Tennessee scores a touchdown in its first 3 possessions under Darmody, Guarantano's not coming in. He may come in later, but I'm not going to throw him in just to throw him in if Darmody's playing well. So that could be the kicker as to whether you play Darmody at all or much in the first game.
All right, let's move on to the offensive line. Continues to be held back a little bit. They don't have the continuity because they've had injuries all over the place. You've had injuries specifically at center. This week you were working on your third-string guy in Jack Jones because Robertson was out. Coleman Thomas was out. Concerns about the O-line. It was supposed to be the strength of the team, and yet they can't seem to get the 5 they want out there at one time. To me, this is a bigger worry than anything else at the moment.
Well, when you look at how much else you're having to replace on offense, you were counting on the offensive line to kind of, keep things stable, and we know we're going to be able to do some things because what is it now, like 97 starts in that group that's returning? And last year, wasn't that a struggle starting out? They couldn't really block Appalachian State. Are you going to be looking at that same kind of thing again? So, yeah, it is a concern. If a streak turns into a weakness or just average, that's going to hurt Tennessee.
Bob?
I think it's, to me, that, like you said, could be the biggest problem on the team. And like you said, I thought this was going to be a strength. And if the offensive line is struggling, I think a lot of people, this is the time of year where people, fans of football, of a football team, they get more excited. I've kind of been backing up on that a little bit. Somebody asked me the other day, said, well, you've been saying 8-4. Yes, I did say 8-4. I'm kind of sliding down, and part of the reason is the offensive line. And last week we talked about, are you concerned at this point? Well, I think if you can't put together 5 guys right now, I think that is a bigger concern than possibly your quarterback's not separated from one another.
A few years ago, John, I said Tennessee really had good depth at receiver, and about 5 of them got hurt. This year, I said they got really good depth on the offensive line, and now they're getting banged up. I think that's one reason you continue to hear the coaches say the defense is ahead of the offense, because I think the offensive line has struggled. Now, there may be other issues to it than just that, but I think that's a big part of why the defense is ahead of the offense, and it's really hard to build continuity, in my opinion, on the offensive line when you keep moving people around due to injury.
Ryan, let me change the subject on you. You probably had an answer all for welcome to the show. You get your answer ready, and I change the question on you due to time. Butch Jones came out this week and said he's not going to address rumors. There are rumors out there that anywhere from 1 to several players could be suspended for the Georgia Tech game. I don't want to get into any kind of names here because it is just rumors at this point, and I know none of you guys would do that anyway. But your thoughts on these rumors that are swirling and Butch Jones' response to say, not going to go there?
Well, it's interesting, but definitely not surprising to see him handle it the way he has. I think he's shown in the past, Willie Martinez, people forget a couple years ago, suspended for the season opener, was announced just before the game. Justin Martin last year, suspension announced just before the game. I think that's the kind of the status quo for how things are likely to be handled, and for right now, I wouldn't expect him to say anything.
If there are the suspensions that are rumored, it's a serious concern for Georgia Tech. I mean, for Tennessee going into that game.
Yes.
If we're talking about the folks that people are, if you're talking about multiple people anywhere on any team, that's a concern.
And it could also be a little bit of an equalizer because don't forget Georgia Tech just dismissed their top returning running back, and he was a very good player and would be the type of running back to give Tennessee fits.
You're right on my sheep. That's good.
No.
That's outstanding. You're producing well today. So when does he start producing his own show as usual? The Butch Jones did point out with that dismissal though this week, he said Georgia Tech was 3-0 without that guy last year. So okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about the most important position. Most important single position on offense, not including quarterback. That'd make it too easy. Most important position for the 2017 Vols on defense. Come on back on the Sports Source.